Yeah, I was starting with pain points. Okay, but in my experience and what I've seen, that I would, put it in broad three categories: performance management process itself, like to start with goals, then evaluation process, and then comes feedback. Right. So starting with goals, now that itself is a challenge at times, because if there is no quantification of goals, right, or if there are the goalpost keeps changing due to frequent external environment, conflicting goals. Like I just give an example of in banking we have a sales team and credit team, right? So conflicting goals. There is no linkage of goals to main KRAs of the organization. Now, if that itself is not clear, then how do you go about it? That understanding of goals itself becomes a challenge. Coming to evaluation part, in terms of, again, if there is too much subjectivity in designing the goals itself, then obviously your performance evaluation will not be objective, and then there will be transparency issue, and then people will have they feel that there is a lot of bias. Perception of bell curve itself comes around the play. So with handling all these challenges, and then finally comes about feedback, giving feedback. Now many a times supervisors who are in terms of giving constructive feedback, that becomes challenging unless until we train these people, or they groom themselves and they have this, that they want to give constructive feedback. Because the idea of performance management process, according to me, is more about not dwelling so much on past, but talking also about future. Okay, fine, whatever has happened, now what is that which we need to do in future?
I think this entire culture of feedback as against feed forward is one of the woes. If I may add a couple of points, I think there's excessive focus on individuals' performance. And I think not too much weightage is given to collaborative work that is required to be done in today's world, agile, scrum-driven world. So that is another area, I think, which is a pain point. The other piece is managers or supervisors' lack of capability or lower level capability in having meaningful conversations throughout the year. I think managers are also woefully short of time. It's not just they don't want to do it, but they are woefully short of time to have structured performance discussions, which throughout the year, without HR pushing them to have those discussions, I think is another pain point. And if I may also add, this entire, sweet spot, the right balance between theory Y and theory X approach. So these cannot be really mutually exclusive. So in my view, a combination of theory Y and approach to performance management, of assuming that employees wanted to perform well and would do so if they're given the right direction and they're properly supported, and balance it with theory X of motivating with material rewards and, of course, punishment, so to say. So that, and otherwise the percentage merit pay always overshadows the other aspects of performance management.
I will share what has worked best for us in creating a high performance work culture in such a growing environment, right? So first and foremost, we treat the first appraisal very differently, which is for all the new hires. The new hires could be trainees or they could be experienced professionals. The focus here is definitely on skill building and helping them assimilate the TCS culture and values. We try to harness the potential of these individuals by focusing on their learning needs. And the manager also plays the role of a coach to a new player. Now, the goals are tied to deliverables, but they are very minimal at this stage because the focus is on skill-based assessment in the first year. And that group of employees are not compared with the rest of the employees. Ajay spoke about the bell curve. We don't have the bell curve in the first year at all for the newcomers, right? And but the second year, there's a shift. This is very different. The second year, there's a balanced view of goals as well as skills, which is reflected in equal weightage that is given to both. So which means the goals which are tied to the role that one plays, it has set targets, and the goals are SMART goals. We all know what SMART goals are, right? And they are directly related to one's deliverables, to the projects. What is it that they're expected to perform? At the same time, any organization which is future focused cannot do away with skills. Right? The skill based assessment still continues to play a very important role. So the skills could be technical, which form a part of goals itself, or they could be behavioral skills, which in TCS we call as attributes. So we have goals which are tied to projects, as well as behavioral skills which are tied to the potential of an individual, how well the person is able to move forward in the future in terms of aspirations as well. And we mandate one of the attributes which is called continual learning. Right? That shows the focus of the organization on upgrading one's skills on a continuous basis. It's mandatory for all employees across all grades, across all levels. This is a value that we really cherish. And finally, one aspect that Ruchira also spoke about, feed forward. Just a couple of years ago, TCS launched the industry first model, performance management model, which is called feedback to feed forward. Now, in feed forward, while feedback is given by the managers and it's on a continuous basis, but the system also automatically collates feedback and shares with that individual on a real-time basis. So that's what we call as feed forward. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you feedback. You can automatically just log in and see where you stand on a lot of parameters, right? Because feedback, as we know, is more of a past performance, and you look at something and then you say you could have done better here or you excelled here. But feed forward ongoing gives you those inputs so that you can fine-tune your performance round the year.
So we've got three classifications. We call one category is what we call daily management, which is the routine tasks that everyone is expected to. That's what the role was set up for. The next one is the execution themes, which is sort of the areas where you need a little bit of out of the routine activity, but it's not something great. It's not like it'll take 6 months for you to do something or whatever. The last one is what is critical to us, which is the breakthrough directions. And those are the ones that we classify as, for example, safety is a big thing for us. So when you say zero tolerance, safety becomes paramount in a chemicals setup. So we've got for that function, and I'm just taking one function. Obviously, there are a lot more. Production, obviously, quality is very important. Dispatch quality is very important. Utilities, the input-output ratio, and so on and so forth. So a lot of important things that go on, and the way that we like to deal with this is that there is a section at the end of the appraisal where we say that the system calculated rating is this. So for example, it comes out to be a good or a very good or whatever. The appraiser and the reviewer, they have the leeway to change that, go against the system calculated rating and say that, okay, we believe that this was important and therefore the rating is this. Looking at the other way, we got a super performer who had a near miss in his area of work. For that year, from outstanding, he came down to met expectations. So those messaging, that bit of messaging is what we sort of deploy, and this is communicated. It's not that we take you by surprise and say that, okay, you don't know why suddenly your rating dropped 2 notches. And I think one thing that we miss out as HR people, and I do it unconsciously or subconsciously or whatever, is when we're looking at a performance management system, we are talking of concrete, tangible outcomes. We're talking of promotions, we're talking of increments, we're talking of transfer, we're talking of training needs and this and that. I think one important element that we miss out is the intangible self-esteem of the recipient. And in a well environment, you will definitely have 35% of people who will not be happy in our well, that's the lower 2 ratings. 25, sorry. Yeah. So that is something that one needs to be careful about, and you keep devising communication strategies and one-on-ones and groups and so on and so forth, saying that there is a year Sachin never made a century every match that he played. So you will have patches and this and that. So yeah. So I think quality, almost every area that we have, except maybe for the support functions where there's a little leeway in terms of an error coming in and being sort of tolerated or excused and so on. But quality becomes paramount everywhere, because otherwise you lose out, and you make a mistake and you make it again and you're out of the market because there's so much of competition.
We are looking at, as an organization, we have a lot of the basics in place, right? So we want to kind of obviously elevate what will help our top talent, our employees really stay and be motivated. So yes, you have the usual, which is we do offer wellness benefits. We offer the whole EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Program. And, basically with COVID happening, that became one of the key things that our organization kind of brought in. But what I'll probably like to touch upon is 2 or 3 key things which we feel will help, at least in terms of giving employees more motivation to stay, be engaged, which is one is that we have very well-defined career paths, specifically for our tech talent. Because that is where our organization is more tech-enabled as well. So yes, there's an offline side, but also a very tech-enabled group. So we have very well-defined global career paths that allow for our people to really just take ownership and run with it. They should be able to take ownership, speak to their managers, start looking at opportunities to develop themselves. So there's a lot of drive that we've built for employees to own their own careers. The second piece that I think, coming from a talent perspective, is we've actually built out a program on mentoring specifically for skill building. So it's not mentoring just for leaders, but it's mentoring across the organization, where I can just reach out to a mentor using AI as a platform to really go ahead and, speak to someone in the organization, could be sitting in any part of the world. The third thing, of course, we have done is we've implemented a big push of coaching for our senior leaders, because we know they are the ones who run the business. They're the ones who run the teams, and they're the ones who really do all the communication. So I think that's our big piece of investment that we've done for our leaders and our people. I think, the basics will always be there. We have manager development, we have flexible working hours, we have, linking everything in terms of our recognition to our leadership behaviors. We're currently running a wellness month, and we will run a DEI month. 4 weeks of DEI next week. I think for us, in short, it's communication. One of the things we've realized that people really want to know, given the times of the economy, how things are running in the organization, given what happened 15 months ago in Ukraine, giving all of that into consideration, one of the key things that we've realized that has worked is communicate. So everything we do runs on an overhaul of communication. It can get annoying at a point, but I think it helps, because you might just catch someone else in that who may have missed the communication. So these are just a few different things we've tried in the last few years, which seem to be working and helping. And we continue to build on it.
We have a different perspective on what you call intrinsic motivators. We call them engagement drivers. And rather than second guessing, rather than our thinking that maybe development would work, maybe well-being would work, maybe something or the other, we ask people. So in our annual survey, the one that the engagement survey, the first part is dedicated to what are your drivers, what engages you, what are the things that you'd like to see in the organization that will prompt you to stay longer. So we force fit. We give them about 20 choices, and we say that you have to pick 5, not less, not more. So when you force fit, then there is. Then obviously people apply their mind. It's not that I take the first 5 or the last 5 or whatever. So what we figured was that the 5 drivers, and typically these remain the top 5 drivers year on year, is career opportunity, recognition, work-life balance, manager, and a new entrant this time was safety. Again, going back to the chemical, this thing and so on. So then we say that, okay, what is your satisfaction score against each of these? And if the satisfaction score is more than 90, then we're sort of, we let that be. But if it is not, then we start working on that. So, I can pick each one individually, but for want of time, let's just say, okay, interesting thing about work-life balance, which is probably not connected, is that we did a study where we found out that people who were spending the most hours at the workplace were the ones who were complaining the least about work-life balance. And so, so it's about work-life balance is in the head. If you're engaged and if you're enjoying what you're doing, then these hours don't matter to you. So anyway, that's an aside. But just to pick one, manager. So we have an exit interview that people undertake at the time of leaving, after they resign and before they leave. And the reason for leaving, manager being the reason for leaving, is 0%. Zero. And when they go out, we do an external exit survey when, after they've spent more than 3 months outside, because now they don't have any stake, their full and final is done, they're probably comfortable in the new place and so on. 44% of people say that they left because of the managers. 44, 0 to 44, that's the shift that happens. Out of these 44%, more than 50%, I think 60%, close to 60%, say they would want to come back to SRF if they did not have the same managers. Now, that shows us that as an organization, we're okay probably, and it suit people, but the manager. So we zeroed in on the manager thing. And the things that we do are both from a post facto analysis of how the managers are behaving, red flagging managers, telling the HR, telling the CEOs that these are the people who see the most sort of attrition. These are the teams that see the most attrition and so on and so forth. That's the data part. But otherwise, what we did was we found out, and I've always believed that the smallest ecosystem, the manager subordinate ecosystem, is the most powerful ecosystem in your work life, because that is what matters the most. There was a sociological thinker, Emile Durkheim, who equated society with God. Now I'm halfway there equating the manager with God, because he gives you everything that you go to pray for, right? He gives you happiness, he gives you safety, he gives you growth, he gives you whatever. And my guess is that most people who go and pray in temples aren't praying to get rid of world hunger. They're going there for a selfish reason, which is them. So then we said that, okay, we'll look at managers. So we had FGDs, we had surveys, we had what are the pain points and so on and so forth. And we realized that many of these problems stem from the first-time managers. So we have a specific offering that we rolled out. 80 people currently undergoing phase 2 of that, which is the FTM, whatever the intervention, so to say. So that's, I think that's how we operate. We ask people rather than second guess. We ask them what are the things that matter to them, and then every year we pick one and we start working on that.
Things which we do apart from Leadership Connect, R&R, and various other things in terms of connecting with people. So these are two industry recognized best practices which we have been felicitated by the industry. So one is that we have house concept. Okay, so like how we used to have in schools, house concept, red, blue, green, yellow. So we have divided the full organization, cross-functionally, regionally, whatever way you say, we have done dissection. At the time of offering a letter, appointment letter, issuing an appointment letter, we mention their house name. Okay, so you have that belongingness to a particular house. You have house captains, you have vice captains, you have regional captains. So whatever initiatives, be it business performance or be it in the area of fun activities or, everything, there are house points, and you get allocated whatever you do. House points are published quarterly. You get to see which house is doing well, and end of the year when we have our annual rewards and recognition program, which is a grand scale program. We do it in NCPA. More than 1,000 employees are accommodated, and their rolling trophy is given to the house captain and the house team members. So that is something where you get the the employee feels the belongingness at that particular house, and that thing of doing well, be it business wise or even in other areas, like we have sports events, annual sports events in various locations. Second point which I wanted to talk about is our stay interviews. Okay, so it's not about exit interviews, which anyways we do, but also the people who are in the organization. Each and every employee gets connected by every HR manager. One of the HR managers do connect, and broad parameters which we look at is obviously the same things: career, role, supervisor, work environment, and from there, whatever data, whatever themes come up, so be it verbatim or on the parameters we look at on a scale of 1 to 10, where do they rate us? There are themes which are coming out. We do FGDs, we come up with policies, processes. The whole thing, it's again the feedback which we're getting from employees. It's not something we decide, okay, now today we have to come up with this policy, but from these inputs which we get from our people, then we roll out these policies, because there's a larger acceptance, and of course it has to run by our people forum, which is a people management committee we have in the bank by senior people. So this is how we do. So I mean, there are various ways. I'm sure many of us are doing something or the other to connect and build those intrinsic motivators. So this is from our side.
One quick check though, I mean, more on the script again, to say that when you look at all of your employees, for the last 1 hour almost, we have spoken about performance management, and a key part of that is people. Like one of us said that people have something called as self-esteem, which also matters at the end of the year when we start, or even start of the year, start looking at their goals, their performance, and so on. So when you come to your people, let's say, I mean, how much do you believe that when it comes to people, engagement has a key role to play, and if possibly most of your workforce is engaged, then you will most likely end up having the best of performance or the best of years. So is there a correlation that you have tried to draw, and have you seen some correlation directly to say that teams which are highly engaged have had the best of performance on a business front? What will be your views on that?
Yes, Sudarshan, if there is lesser engagement, the company would struggle to sustain momentum or performance levels. However, it's not necessarily that highly engaged workforce can work without a proper performance management framework. So I think it's very important to engage with the engaged workforce with a structured way to assess their performance, motivate them, reward them, give them different opportunities across either in the same function or across functions, across projects, but in a structured manner. Otherwise, just by how do you otherwise keep them engaged, right? So it's important that I think there's a direct correlation, but also it's a cycle that needs to be performed year on year. In today's time, maybe more frequently, to keep the engagement going so that the performance is also top notch.
I think if I was to just add on to what Ruchira just said, I don't think there's a direct linkage which will say if you're engaged, your performance will be top notch. There's no way that we can even come to that. Yes, research says, and this is research done by Gallup recently as well, which says higher engagement means higher productivity. Does it mean that the performance will suddenly go skyrocketing? I'm not too sure. I think if I flip it around is, if people are not engaged, then you see the usual behaviors of absences coming into play, unhappiness around the office, the energy is lower, people tend to leave faster, there's probably more attrition. Not sure if that's correlatable all the time, but at least the understanding is you need to have a performance measures, systems, ecosystem, everything needs to fit in, so that if and when we do look at employee performance, then it is correlated to their engagement. Yes, it will help them get more engaged. But I think if you say engagement is linked to high performance, I possibly would say engagement might be linked to improving productivity and engagement of people, and them being able to stay in the organization, and alongside giving them all the levers to pull to be able to do their job every single day. So that would be my add-on.